What is the biggest challenge for film shooters, especially for less experienced ones? No, I'm not talking about horrendous film prices, which surely affect most of us. I think the biggest obstacle to good film photos is getting the exposure right. A lot of photographers struggle doing that and are often unsure how to set the exposure. Whenever I upload a video where I shoot film, there will always be people asking how I metered and what my settings were. A lot of the film cameras that we use are old, some reach back decades and are older than the photographer itself. Even if they work well, often they don't even come with a light meter or with a broken one. It might even save you a fair bit of money when you pick up a camera with a broken light meter, and it could be a decent option to go with instead of spending a lot of money for a fully working one. If you then don't want to be stuck with guessing your exposure, you now have several options. You can use an external light meter like this one here, which is great, especially when you want to use a flash, but it's also a little bit bulky. There would also be the option to use an app on your phone, which gets the job done, but for some reason I have never been a fan of using those. There is also another option available that you're probably familiar with, and that is one of these small light meters that go on top of your camera into the cold or the hot shoe. That being said, there's a new kit around the block and it's this one here. I'm not even trying to pronounce the name of the company, but they sent over their brand new light meter for me to try out, and after giving it a shot, I really liked it. So let's quickly get it out of the box. The first thing that you will notice is that it is very small, but it has some heft to it. And it weighs around 50 grams. It feels very well made with only one button on the back and a wheel on top. But the main attraction has to be the screen, which is small, but it will give you all the information that you need and is very readable even on a bright and sunny day. On the bottom you'll find a USB-C port for charging the internal battery, which is very convenient. Now the light meter slides into the hot or cold shoe of your camera, and the way to operate it is by simply pressing the button on the back once to turn it on. If you then want to change your film ISO, double press the button, but on the second press keep holding it until the arrow jumps down to ISO, and then you can use the dial to set the ISO. The range here is from ISO 5 all the way to 6400. If you then press the button again, it'll jump up to the aperture setting. Now you're in aperture priority, which is also indicated by the A in the bottom row. Instead, if you'd rather want to set your shutter speed, double press the button and it will let you do that, and then it will calculate which aperture you need to get the exposure right. It's basically shutter priority indicated by the T on the screen. Now if you double press the button and hold it on the second press for 3.5 seconds, the exposure value on top of the display changes to EC, which is basically exposure compensation, which is nice to have. After setting that, simply press the button once and you're back to aperture priority. But it will now take the exposure compensation that you dialed into account. The only thing here that I don't like is that it will not show you that there is exposure compensation in place, and you have to remember that. I think it would be better if you could see your exposure compensation permanently displayed instead of the EV value on top. That being said, if you turn on the light meter with pressing the button for 10 seconds and you turn it back on again, the exposure compensation is still in place. That can be handy if you are shooting the same film stock for a while and you want to overexpose it because you prefer the look or the film is expired and needs more light. Then it's nice that it's not resetting itself every time you turn it off. On the other hand, you need to remember that in case you're shooting a different film stock. I think the best solution would be to have the exposure compensation displayed permanently. Maybe that is possible with a firmware update, but who knows. Now, when you turn it on, in order to get an exposure reading, you need to press the button once. However, when you hold the button for 1.5 seconds, it will go into a permanent exposure reading mode, and it will update the values without pressing the button. To lock the exposure for 5 seconds, just tap the button once. If you're not pressing the button, the light meter will turn the screen off after around 30 seconds. And if you want to turn it off entirely, just hold down the button for around 10 seconds. I have to say, even though there's only one button for all the functions, it is still fairly easy to figure out, and after using it for a few times, it was very easy to use and I had no issues whatsoever. Now the question is, how accurate is the meter? Well, to test it out, I have mounted it to my Leica Q3, which is set to spot meter. ISO is at 100, aperture is f4. Alright, now let's see what the external light meter gives us. And as you can see, it pretty much gives me the same reading, so it seems like it's very accurate. Alright, that's about it for today's short review. As always guys, if you liked the video, smash the like button. No, not the one on the light meter. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and we will see each other very soon in the next one. Until then, auf Wiedersehen.